Chinese-made EVs are now allowed to be sold on Canadian soil. And you're going to start seeing these vehicles driving around in Canada and potentially United States in very short order. Recent trade deals between Canada and China has now literally opened the doors to accepting a lot of these electric vehicles that are produced in China. While a lot of car makers are now competing for smaller and shrinking market share, this latest deal now has Canada looking potentially to have tariffs dropped on a lot of their canola oil and a lot of agricultural products for the sake of allowing China to bring some of their EVs, where they once were sitting at 100% tariff for these electric vehicles made in China. Now we're going to potentially see vehicles like NIO, Geely, as well as BYD now potentially flooding the market in Canada. A lot of those now from 100% tariff are literally going to be slashed down to 6.1% tariffs, making the competition potentially flooding the door. Chicken tax has kept a lot of foreign markets out of the North American marketplace, which of course, sadly, creates this reduction in competition. Competition creates better products, more affordability. And if there's one thing that we've all seen in this last few years is this jacked up pricing. A lot of the North American products, GM, Chevy, Ford, even Stellantis, which is partially European, the fact remains is a lot of these manufacturers now are getting very nervous. BMW, Honda, Toyota are all getting scrambled because they're starting to watch as Canadian trade relations with China are now allowing a lot of these electric vehicles to flood the market. Could this in fact be the final play, the nail in the coffin, the thing that actually destroys the global automotive market? I think it's time to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what this means for car enthusiasts and what this means for car buyers, what this means for car manufacturers, and is it literally going to destroy the entire automotive industry? This latest trade deal now has Canada allowing as many as 49,000 Chinese-made EVs into the market with only a 6.1% tariff applied to their vehicles. In other words, now free competition reigns. And this could definitely put some serious burden on a lot of the competition. BMW, Toyota, Honda, many of these vehicles are either manufactured or somehow sold in North American markets, Canada being a big market, the US market as well. And with Canadian tourism visiting the US and US tourism visiting Canada, there's enough of this back and forth to create the obvious impact. That's right. Chinese-made vehicles that are not only going to land on Canadian soil, but likely will be seen on U.S. roads as well. Canada's been struggling with selling canola, with a lot of their biggest market going to China, with an effort for China to put some pressure on Canada to try to ease off and allow some of these Chinese-made EVs into the Canadian market. Well, guess what? That seems to be happening. Now, currently, the arrangement is only 49,000 vehicles are capped in the first year from China to be allowed into Canada at that 6.1% tariff. But by 2030, they're suggesting that they're allowing as many as 70,000 vehicles allowed into Canada from China. And we know that many of these Chinese-made EVs, for the true enthusiasts, are already, in many cases, faster round laps than many of the products that we're seeing from Europe as well as North America. So for true car enthusiasts that like to go fast, they're definitely going to answer that. For people that just love techs and gizmos and features and technology and autonomous driving, that's covered too. And for people that value low-cost buying and the competitiveness of just buying something that's affordable, the Chinese market has that too. So could this in fact destroy the current market? Well, what we're seeing right now is Tesla's getting nervous, and a lot of these car manufacturers are getting very, very nervous with this current effort for China to bring more of these vehicles now to Canada. The fact remains is it's not time to pull the panic button yet. Because in fact, they're looking, even if they allow that many vehicles to be sold, there's still that setup time. And by the time these Chinese-made vehicles make the Canadian market, that still, with the maximum cap, still only allows as many as 2.5% to 3% of the vehicles sold in the market share to be sold in Canada to actually cap the vehicles that we currently see on the roads. A lot of the Toyota products, a lot of the Honda products we know are built in Canada, and even a lot of the North American products, GM and Chevy and Stellantis made products, while they're being relocated in the US, the fact remains is a lot of these vehicles still have their own market. And for those that don't want anything to do with the EV space, it's a non-issue. That being said, we know that the push is on for federal legislation to be pushing people more and more into electric vehicles. For those true car enthusiasts, though, yes, there's still fret not. There's still a lot of great internal combustion vehicles. And that being said, with great brands like Toyota, we still see the fact that there's still opportunities to get in plug-in hybrids or hybrid vehicles which don't really infringe on a lot of this competition anyway, and it's really irrelevant. Now, this all could be for naught, and it could be a matter of timing, but let's be honest, with legislation changing and the fact that there's this revocation of pulling back a lot of these benefits that the federal government was offering up to incentivize the sale of these EVs, the fact remains is since that's been revoked, and since a lot of customers are changing their attitudes and mindsets, and they're realizing that the battery range isn't there, the battery technology, cold weather is having an impact, and the fact that EVs have taken a slump, sales are reducing. Initially, they were talking about have as many as 20% of the vehicles sold by 2026 to be EVs. We see that actually dropping off a cliff. So could this in fact have a major impact on the Canadian US market? Well, yes and no. In a lot of ways, this is a positive for people that love fun cars, furious cars. Remember, you may not buy an electric vehicle made in China, but what this does do is bear down and create additional pressure on a lot of these manufacturers that are currently in production, even whether you want to buy an EV from Tesla, Mustang Mach-E, or maybe you just want an ICE vehicle. Whatever it is, if you want to drive your exciting vehicle, know this: by having additional competition in the market only creates that competition. That's right. In fact, it allows a lot of these manufacturers now to look at this and say, look, we need to be competitive. How we're going to do that? We have to adjust our pricing. We have to offer up better features, better performance, and all of those things that we value very much. Features, reliability, technology, and most importantly, pricing are all going to be addressed, because as you allow more cost competitive manufacturers in the door, what you're likely going to see is better competition. Competitions that's pushing each and every manufacturer to do their very best to be competitive. See, because before, when we talked about the chicken tax has literally kept a lot of that competition outside. But the US has applied the chicken tax, and that's essentially allowed the big three to run free. Yes, create all kinds of products that aren't really the most competitive. We've been seeing it with Fords, with the GMs, and with the Ram or Stellantis products, that they've been able to create products that, let's be honest, jacking up in prices, the quality's going down, and they're allowed to run free and do virtually anything they want. But now, having more the doors open to some of this foreign competition could potentially allow a lot of this competition now to look and say, you know what, we've got to build a better product. We've got to be more cost effective, and we've got to offer that features and the performance, in other words, to match these vehicles. And this also extends out to the likes of BMW. And a lot of these products are built on North American soil. So as such, they know that they have to create products like that. BMW, Mercedes, a lot of these vehicles are built in the US. So as we see more of this competition, whether you like it or not, the fact remains is it could in fact create a benefit for those people who want to drive those great European cars, Mercedes, BMW, maybe Audi. And you know what? As they see this, we're starting to see vehicles like, we know if 2026, even the Volkswagen ID Buzz is going away. They just can't compete. The high prices, the lacking in competition, nobody's buying them. Well, guess what? For vehicles now, with the Chinese market offering vehicles under $35,000 in the Canadian market, is going to push more people into that space. And those that don't want that, guess what? The big domestic and big European products are going to have to look at this and say, you know what? We need to do better. We need to offer up products that are competitive. And this is a true win. So ultimately, is this going to destroy the global market? Well, in short, no. In my own personal opinion, I think what it's going to do is just create a more competitive environment. And that's what we're all looking for. I don't know. You're going to have to decide whether you want a BYD or a Geely or any of those EVs from China. The bigger question is, are you going to be buying something more exciting to drive than you were, say, 5 years ago? Because 5 years ago, we look at the market and it all it became was just an absolute market of gouging, price increases, market adjustment fees, and reduced quality with turbocharging 3-cylinder engines, hybrid technology that's made it up to engines that weren't designed for it, drivetrains that aren't holding up, oil consumption, technology that's creating all kinds of problems and have the vehicles required servicing way too frequently, means that now these manufacturers are going to have to take a second look and say, you know what? We need to become more competitive again. And yes, I want a vehicle that I can roll my own gears, a vehicle that's going to be reliable, a vehicle that maybe can last 250, 300,000 miles without constant visits to the dealership. And vehicles that maybe we can get back into a market of 15, 20, $25,000 vehicles that are actually fun to drive, that don't feel like throwaway junkers. Yes, in fact, this could in fact strike a nice balance to create better products in the North American market. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. Does this in fact change or destroy the global market? I don't know. Time will tell. But it's only allowed to trickle in. And know this, it's not the floodgates. It's currently opening a small amount of volume. The market share is likely going to be anywhere from 1 to 5% in the next 5 years. So that's still a very small place. The streets aren't going to be running rampant with Chinese made vehicles, and likely we're not going to be flooded out by that. That being said, it does create a moment for a lot of these marketplace manufacturers like the Europeans, as well as the domestic products, and even those from Asia, to take a second look and wonder, what can we do to create a better product that's more affordable? I'd like to hear your thoughts again down below, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you real soon. Bye bye.